Hello, everyone. Welcome to Helping Your Anxious Clients. It's my YouTube podcast from Panic Attack Guy. So if you follow me on YouTube, Panic Attack Guy, this is a podcast I put together just specifically to get coaches resources on what to do with their most anxious and triggered clients. So welcome to today's episode. It's episode 3, and I have a doozy for you because we're going to be talking about the kiddos. We're going to be talking about kids. We're going to talk about how they experience triggers and anxiety, meltdowns, tantrums, and what to do about it. And I have a special guest for you all that you're going to really enjoy all the resources, goodies, techniques you're going to learn from her. Her name is Allison Morgan. And let me tell you a little bit about Allison, and I'll bring her on in just a moment just so you could get to meet this person. She is a pediatric occupational therapist, and she's an author, international speaker. She trains a lot of different people in different professions. So it's parents, educators, healthcare professionals, allied health professionals, and she gives them tools and develops skills in self-awareness, management skills, compassion, resilience, and many, many others, especially with the kiddos. So you will want to listen to everything she has to say because oftentimes the kiddos are preciousnesses, okay? So we want to be able to help them, especially when there's an anxiety situation and we're in the heat of the moment. Without further ado, we're just going to get right into it. I am so excited to bring my dear friend Allison on right now. How are you?
I'm so excited to be here with you and to talk about what we're going to talk about today because I think it's just so important.
Yeah, de-escalating kids. I get a lot of questions about this. I've gotten on many calls with parents. We were talking offline a little bit about it on what to do when your kid has tantrums. What do you do when your kid has anxiety? What do you do when your kid is triggered? And I think you have a lot of ideas that you're going to be sharing with us today. But I first want them to hear, who are you? Tell us a little bit more about you because, a little blurb doesn't
Yeah,
do it justice.
little snippet. Well, you sort of encapsulated a lot in there in the little intro.
Yeah.
So I've been working with schools and with kids and with families for over 30 years. And my work really started as an occupational therapist. So
Mhm.
as an OT, I would typically see kids that were really, really struggling, kids with autism, ADHD, Down syndrome, developmental challenges, neurological challenges, developmental challenges. And it was through that work of really helping the neediest kids, you could say the most anxious kids, the most triggered kids, that I started to develop this whole area of using mindfulness really
Yeah.
as a therapeutic tool initially, and really seeing just the changes that can happen with a different approach. So at the time when I was really learning about, you could say like breath awareness, self-awareness, self-management, and mindfulness, it wasn't being introduced in the mainstream. In fact, anytime that I would mention it to people that I was working with, like colleagues, other professionals or parents, they were like, "What are you doing?
Yeah. Right.
What? Like you
Right.
have a therapeutic degree and like you want to sit there and teach kids how to breathe, right? And how to be
Yeah.
aware of what they're feeling." And so it was a really interesting thing to start to bring into a therapeutic model. But
Mhm.
working with kids for so long and working with adults for so long, I started to realize that these are tools we can all use because
Yeah.
we all sort of like suffer from the same kinds of things on different levels.
Yeah, and I like that you said that because I work primarily with adults and coaches, right?
Mhm.
And so, it is different. My youngest client, you and I were talking offline, is 19.
Yeah.
So there is a difference working with the kiddos, and I want you to kinda talk about that being someone who's worked with adults and kids. What are the different maybe difficulties in addressing it with a kid and mindfulness and their stress and
Mhm.
anxiety than it is with an adult? What is that
Yeah.
difference?
I'd say the biggest difference is that with adults, we're so used to trying to rationalize how we're feeling. like trying to understand, okay, like I'm feeling anxious. Why am I feeling anxious right now? What could have been my trigger? What could I do differently? So we immediately go to like this cognitive place of
Mhm.
analyzing and understanding. And with kids, you really can't go there. Not
Mm.
there are two other things. You kind like I look at it like three kind of steps of what
Okay.
to take,
Okay.
but that reasoning, that trying to understand and explain, you do that last, very, very last.
Very last. Okay.
And
So a client,
honestly,
a kid has like a trigger in the moment. What would be that first thing that we do?
so the first thing is really about us.
Okay.
Okay, so the way that we look at, and when I say we, I'm talking about people in development, in therapy, that are looking at the research of our own neurology and
Yep.
our own biology. What we've really come to understand is that when we're triggered, or when we're like on the floor, when things are overwhelming, or become anxious, really what's happening is our nervous system gets what we call dysregulated.
Okay.
So when we think of our nervous system being like the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our calming part of our nervous system,
Mhm.
and our sympathetic nervous system, which is really like a stress response, right? So
Yep.
when we're having like an anxiety attack, that's your sympathetic nervous system is just like,
On
I
haywire.
gotta go, 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 go,
Yes.
go.
Yes.
And tools that we would use would be to turn on that parasympathetic nervous system.
Right.
So we look at behavior as really being a reflection of what is happening within that nervous system.
Yep.
Where's that balance? So is that sympathetic nervous system just like go, 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 that fight, flight, freeze? Or is that parasympathetic nervous system just offline, and can we get it online?
And so you're saying we should be reflecting, if we're going to be the one holding space for the kid, we should be looking at that first for the adult, in
Well,
the
so
equation.
so here's like this is like one of the coolest things about
Mhm.
regulation. So
Okay.
when we are in a state of just like we're calm, we're present, and this is for our
Mhm.
kids or ourselves, we can say then that our nervous system is regulated. Our nervous system is balanced. And that's what we're all like searching for. Like,
We're all striving for the balance.
exactly. We're all striving. Like, can I get myself regulated? Can I
Right.
help my
Mhm.
kids get regulated? But here's the coolest thing about regulation, because it's all about the nervous system,
Mhm.
is that we're not born being able to regulate our nervous system. Babies can't do it themselves.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
So regulation happens through another nervous system. It's called co-regulation. So the
Mm.
way that I explain it is sort of like this. Think of your brain, your spinal cord, all your nerves, like making up your nervous system. Think of it as an antenna. And that antenna sends out a signal of what's going on inside. So
Yep.
if the sympathetic nervous system is in hyperdrive and you're really, really anxious, that antenna is just sending out waves of information about that internal state.
Mhm. Mhm.
The cool thing about nervous systems is we send out information, but we also gather information from
Mhm.
nervous systems around us.
Mhm.
And for children, I mean, we do this throughout the span of our life, but it's really, really strong in children. They're just the receiver. They have this open receiver, like, okay, what's going on around me? Because I don't know anything about the world. My nervous
Right.
system doesn't know what to do. So I'm looking for information from nervous systems around me to know what my nervous system is supposed to be doing right now.
Mm. So if they're picking up on your nervousness, they're gonna also be nervous, right? That's a snowball effect.
Snowball,
Yes.
snowball. So when we have a child that's like in a tantrum, right, has
Mhm.
escalated behavior, it's not necessarily so that your nervous system caused that, right?
Mhm.
There was a trigger. There was a trigger.
Right,
But
right.
then if you're going to be the one that is there to help the child, the very first thing that we need to do is get ourselves regulated.
I
So if
love
we approach it as like, what happened? You were just fine. Why are you on the floor right now? We're in the middle of the supermarket. Why are you doing this? I'm so embarrassed. Like you can't do this right now. Like, let's get up. We gotta go. So
right.
if you're in that heightened state, that's when you're like, I'm going to add to what you got. I'm going to add to what you got, and I'm going to make it a whole lot worse.
Yeah, it'll become way worse real fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
So,
kind of like when I talk to, and you correct me if I'm wrong. So when I
yeah.
work with panickers or, like I said, coaches, and they often, one of the toughest thing a coach has to deal with is a client's imposter syndrome, how to get them to take action, right? And I always say, well, if you're going to approach that and all of a sudden you're entering into a territory where you could get triggered yourself, you're you won't be able to resolve that in them, because now your own imposter syndrome comes up because you start questioning. So until we have a process on how to prepare ourselves to be the facilitator, we actually could do more harm than good, or just make it perpetuate it.
And Ramses, what's so fascinating here is that your nervous system can't lie. Okay. So I could say, like, I could be in a state of like panic right now and just like, smile, right? But when you're with another human being, it's a total unconscious, subconscious transmission of information, right? It happens under the surface. I also like to think of it as like body to body. So my body's projecting what's true, what I'm truly feeling, whether I'm aware of it or not, which is why having self-awareness is so important. But the body of another being is picking that up, and that's
Question. Well, I just to follow up with that. So is this, you and I talked about neuroception.
I was just gonna say, but
I
I'm
was
like,
like,
I don't know if I want to bring in that word yet. We
no,
haven't
I
talked about
do.
it.
I do, because it's powerful, because a lot of people will always think that the person who's going to pick up on what we're broadcasting has to identify, say, as an empath or an HSP. Whereas that's not always the case, because I think as humans, we're still always very attuned to those subtle things that we could pick up on someone else's nervous system. And so talk a little bit about what neuroception is and how that comes into play when you're preparing yourself as the adult dealing with a really triggered kid.
Right. Well, neuroception is essentially what I described with that whole co-regulation. So neuroception is our body's ability to pick up information from our environment, from other people. And it's at a subconscious level. And why it really is so important, especially when you're using the example of, of therapists, right, or coaches helping other people. Whether or not you're aware of it, it's happening. And our job is to be aligned in terms of what we're thinking, what we're saying, and what we're feeling, so that it lands on our clients and it lands in pure truth. And what happens when we're saying one thing and maybe we think we're looking a certain way, but inside we're really struggling with something. What would tend to happen with your clients is they'll especially with adults, they'll take in the verbal, they'll take in the body, of what you're doing,
Visual cues,
body language, right? All of those cues, but then they'll walk out of there and be like something's not really.
Something's wrong. Something
Yeah,
is
and they
really
may
wrong.
not cognitively get that at first, but the body is such a strong receiver of
I
information.
think my people often say is like, "Ooh, I got bad vibes from
Bad
them."
vibes, yeah.
Like I got bad vibes. Like something was off. Something, they had bad juju. Maybe they might say like something was off.
Or I've got a gut feeling.
I have a gut feeling. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So, we went through your first step. So and we know the last step is getting to some cognitive understanding with the kids. So,
right. So the first thing really is regulate yourself.
Regulate yourself.
Get regulated. And I have a few tools that in a little bit I can give
Sure.
you to help with
That'd be
that.
great.
Because sometimes you just need like on the spot, like because my child is freaking out in the supermarket, right? And the
Full-blown
first
tantrum. Yep.
full blown.
Yeah.
And the first thing I need to do is get myself calm and regulated while everybody's like looking at me and judging me, and I'm late, and I got to do food shopping, right?
Yeah.
But so the first thing really is though to like get yourself grounded, get yourself calm.
Right,
So
right.
regulate is the first thing, and the next thing is relate. Right? You
Oh,
need to
love it.
actually connect to the child where they are. And
Okay.
this is super, super important because connection it's a biological imperative.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
when we have kids that are in states of like anxiety and stress and overwhelm, their body is saying, I'm not safe. I am not safe right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So when we're able to directly relate to them, and I'll give you some examples of how,
Sure.
how you do that, but we provide them with a sense of safety. Like, I'm not leaving you alone here. Like I'm here with you
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And that could even be just the thing that you say, like I'm here for you. I'm here to help you.
Yep.
And even acknowledging, like, I can see you are really, really
Ups
angry right now because I won't let you eat that piece of candy right
Mhm.
now. And I understand that you're angry. And it's okay to be angry, but it's hard when you get these really big, big feelings.
Mhm.
So I'm here with you right
I
now.
love that. That's the connection part. I mean, I could think back total vulnerability here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I could think back how that did not happen when I had anxiety as a kid. I actually remember very distinct situation where I was triggered at a supermarket,
Mhm.
and then my mom is like, "You're embarrassing me." You're like it, and somehow I think when I go back to those moments, say in meditation or something, I remember thinking about how I thought, did she just make that about her? Because I'm pretty sure I'm nervous right now.
Yeah, yeah.
But I also tell my parents that don't be hard on yourself because these are skills you learn. Like, these
Oh,
are
1,000%,
right,
1,000%, because I would say like 90% of people were not parented in this way.
right.
And
I wasn't.
parenting just doesn't, and it doesn't come with a rule book. Like we
Right.
follow the rules based on the models that we had.
Mhm.
And oftentimes, our parents didn't know what to do. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I even look at myself, my kids are, in their 20s now. And sometimes I think back to things that I did or I said or the way that I handled a situation. Like, three things just popped into my head where it's
Right.
just like, oh my
Like,
God,
yeah,
like
did I
that was just
parent
like
that
not
way?
the right thing to do. I've scarred my kids for life.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit just about that because I do have a lot of parents who are worried about messing up their kids. I mean, we're in a personal development space where everything is just like be super intentional. And the moment we slip up, we really cause this trauma. I think, and I love what you're kind of saying here, is that if we approach it as there's just new skills you're going to have at your disposal when you're working with a triggered child, I think that's the best way to think about it because, like I said, everything I learned about anxiety and panic attack, I learned. I was not
Yeah.
taught it. Like I had
Right.
to consume it, work with coaches, learn
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
from professionals to be able to master an
Yeah.
anxiety.
Right.
So I love that so much.
And there's
Anything else about that for the
well, yeah.
parents? Yeah.
So, okay, so being a parent of 3 and admitting, like, there were things that I did that were just like I mean, I remember one time my husband came home and he's like, "You did what?" Like, "Really?" But here's the most powerful thing, like, none of us are perfect, right?
Right.
We're supposed to screw up, right? Because
Mhm.
when you sort of screw up, it gives you the opportunity to apologize or, in development, we call it repair.
Repair.
So I even remember saying to my kids, like, You know that thing that I said before? I should not have, that was not the right thing to say. That was not a nice thing to say, and I'm really sorry. Like, I was wrong.
Mhm,
I mean,
mhm.
I said that a lot to my kids, of just owning up, because it's sort of like that saying, "Do you wanna be, happy or do you wanna be right?" Well, first of
Mhm.
all, we're not right all the time.
Right,
And if
right.
we're truly trying to be a model for our kids, we want them to know it's okay to mess up. It's
It's okay to
okay.
mess up. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I don't have kids myself. When I was working with my youngest kids I ever worked with was when I was in, school. I worked with teenagers in middle school,
Mhm.
in
Oh,
music.
gosh.
I was in music. And I found that I learned so much about the younger mind, because the f like you said, you have to connect. Like, there's nothing that's gonna go into their brain unless at first they feel like we're talking the same language and you see me. Like, it just doesn't.
Absolutely.
It's like
Absolutely.
they reject it.
Yeah.
Is that what you're
And
saying?
another way to frame this is you have to meet them where they are.
Meet them where they are.
Right? So if they're in absolute fear, if they're in absolute depression, if they're in absolute anxiety, it's like, I see you. I
Mhm.
can tell you are really anxious right now.
Yep, yep.
I understand. I'm here to help you.
Mhm.
You know, what could I do to help you right now?
I love that.
Or or you can even say, I see you're having a really hard time right now. And then you could give them a choice about things. What about, like, going for a walk? Would you wanna just, like, get up and go for a walk right now, or would you rather I sit here with you, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Do you think maybe it would help to have a drink of water?
Yeah, I love that the idea of giving them options because if you're in a state of a trigger, it's not like you can handle too many options, but you making it as a facilitator in that case,
Yeah.
making it super simple, they could choose A or B,
Mhm.
it's,
Yeah.
so much easier.
Yeah, and I also like to think of the options that I give them of things that would shift their nervous system, actually. So,
Mhm.
would you wanna, like, walk around a little bit? So, like, moving the body helps move all that energy,
Right.
right, that
Mhm.
you've built up when you're anxious. Getting a drink
I
of water is another thing, like, cold water helps balance your nervous system.
Mhm, mhm. And, can you speak a little bit about the preparation with a kid outside of the context of
Yeah,
an actual trigger?
yeah. Oh,
Because I know that a lot of my parents are like, "Well, how would I ever get my kid to comply with this in the moment?" And I've told people, "Hey, well, the key is have the plan before, like, talk to them outside of a trigger, have a plan before."
mhm,
And I
mhm.
wanna know what your input is on how to prepare to be a
Yeah,
facilitator for your
yeah.
kid.
So the way that going back to how I view, like, a tantrum, right?
Mhm,
Or like
mhm.
so you get triggered.
Yep,
It's your nervous system becomes dysregulated, right?
dysregulated.
Your nervous system gets on, like, sympathetic nervous system drive, fight, flight, or freeze
Freeze.
response. And one of the most important things that we could do for our kids is help them build the resiliency of their nervous system
Mm,
so that their baseline of balance, we call this like the window of tolerance. Their baseline is like pretty like toned, pretty resilient. Um, so I think of it like this. And everybody knows people that, like, can really handle a lot, can handle a lot of stress, can handle a lot of distraction, and is able to stay, like, in that window
that
of
window.
tolerance, right? And other people that it's like you look at them the wrong way and they're like, at you. For them,
Gone.
it's a really narrow window of tolerance. And
Right.
I consider this window of tolerance, it's the basis of the resilience of your nervous system.
Mhm, mhm.
So Small window of tolerance means your sympathetic nervous system it's like it's looking like, what can I react to really quickly? Like, what do I have to fear? What do I have to stay away from? What do I have
Right,
to be
right.
reacting to? And when you
Yeah.
have a really wide window of tolerance, you're pretty much able to call upon your parasympathetic nervous system to come online when you need it,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
the way that I look at what's the prep work you could do, like what's the before things that you could do with your kids,
Mhm.
is how do I help them expand that window of tolerance so that
Love
their
that.
nervous system really can handle a lot more?
Mhm. I love
So
that.
yeah, so one of the like best ways is to teach them how to breathe.
Mm.
Because when we are in states of anxiety, when we are in like a low window of tolerance kind of state, our breath tends to be very, very short, very quick, and maybe even sporadic. It's not even really rhythmic. So if
Mhm.
we could teach kids how to take deep breaths in and slow breaths out,
Mhm.
and to do it in a rhythmic pace, they're
Yep.
actually think of it as like building like your biceps,
Yeah,
right? Lifting those reps, doing those reps. It's the same thing with our nervous system.
it's true.
The more that we can use our breath as like a toning device, right? Not honing, but a toning
Tiny
device to
device. Yeah.
strengthen our nervous system balance, the better they'll be able to, number one, tolerate more. So
Right.
that's truly like stress management.
Yep.
And the quicker they're going to be able to come back to a neutral, calm place
Yep.
when being escalated or triggered.
I love that. One of the things that could be tricky for someone who's going to facilitate and helping a kiddo is that the kids don't think the same way as, say, an adult. So, is there a
Yeah.
trick to getting them
Yeah,
to breathe?
yeah. It's like
Because
it's all play. It's
okay, play. Okay,
really, really
great.
all
Because
play. So and I brought a couple of like fun things to
oh,
share with
you
you just
did.
and these are
Yeah.
things I actually use with teenagers too, because like it's
Mhm.
great for little kids, like a 2-year-old. Okay, you could do
Okay.
some of these things with, but you could even use it for like your 19-year-old because
Yeah.
it's a visual, it's something visual. So what we know about our breath is the best thing about our breath is we take it everywhere. So no matter where you are, if you're having a difficult moment, you can use your breath to just ground you and get you to a calmer state. But how you use your breath is very, very important.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it's not just like, don't do
Right.
that. Don't do that. So
Exactly.
we know that when we can lengthen the exhale of our breath, that helps to turn on the parasympathetic nervous
Yep.
system, which is our rest and digest branch of our nervous system.
Right.
So this little toy, which you could get this like Five Below or Amazon, it's really, really cheap. It's called a Hoberman sphere.
Yes,
So
those
it
are fun.
opens and closes, right? Could open really big. Oh yeah, I want to get it in the screen.
There you are.
So you could help describe for your kids how to take in a big breath. And when they breathe in, it's like their belly expands. And when they blow
Ooh,
out,
I
it
love
contracts.
that.
So breathing in and breathing out. And
Mm.
when you really want to teach them, because the trick is extend the exhale. You really
Yes,
want it to be long. So
yes, that's what
another
the
fun
research
thing,
shows. Yep. Mhm.
yeah, another fun thing is a feather, because I teach them to make the feather dance, and you want it to dance for as long as it possibly can without stopping. So you take in
Ooh.
a big breath, and then you blow the feather.
Oh, that's really brilliant. Because, it's hard to teach even adults, because I have adults, it's hard to, in the middle of a trigger, remember in for 3, out for 8,
Yeah,
hold
yeah,
for
yeah.
2.
No,
Like,
because that's here. That's the
that's so
cognitive part.
prefrontal. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
so I love that you're sharing this, because even for adults, it's challenging to remember numbers. Imagine a kiddo, a child, even a teen who's like worried and their body feels like it's giving out on them.
Yeah.
To remember counts would be an
Yeah,
impossibility. Yeah.
another really good trick is using your body. So it's like put your hand on your shoulder, because when you touch yourself, you help your body produce oxytocin,
Oxytocin. Yep.
right? Which is a neurochemical that helps you feel safe in your body. But if you just
Mhm.
touch your shoulder, so that's your inhale, and then you're slowly just gonna, I'm just gonna put my arm up here. You're just gonna glide your hand down your arm as you exhale.
So you get the benefits of the extended exhale and a hit of oxytocin.
And then you do the other side, and then you do the other side. So that's your inhale.
That's so brilliant. I love that so much. Hey, I'm going to use this with my adults.
Oh, absolutely. Take it and run. Yeah,
Brilliant.
another
Brilliant.
good one is just put your hand on your heart and your hand on your belly to
Mhm.
breathe. Because again, once you put your hand on your heart, you start to release chemicals that
Mhm.
support compassion, of like feeling good in your body. But it
Mhm.
also gives you another focal point of like, okay, I'm breathing, okay, are my hands moving? And you could take all your attention down to both of your hands. So it gives you
Mhm.
something else to focus on.
And I love that. One of the things that we hear a lot in our spaces is things like distraction of the anxiety and the trigger is not helpful, because there's a lot of like pushing that down and avoiding it. But this is different, because you're being intentional with taking care of your nervous system. How would you describe that difference? Is this a form of distraction and like
So,
suppression and repression,
okay.
or what are we
Mhm.
doing here
Yeah.
exactly?
So, I mean, on the surface, you could say, yeah, I'm distracted. It is a distraction, right? Because
Mhm.
I'm bringing the focus internally, but
Mhm.
in a proactive, healthy, healing,
Yeah.
restorative way. I'm not trying to distract you so that you're going to forget about what your trigger was or why you were
Mhm.
anxious. I'm actually, when you've been triggered, essentially what happens is the back part of your brain is like all firing and active, and the front part, the thinking part of your brain, is totally offline, right? That's why you can't reason at all, right? And like you can't really in the moment go to like talk therapy,
Right.
right? So what I'm doing with these different techniques is I'm helping the nervous system balance,
Yep.
right? Bringing on that parasympathetic nervous system. And in terms of the neurocircuitry, I'm getting this prefrontal cortex to come back online,
Online. Yep.
right? Because after you do all that, then it actually is really a good practice of like, well, what was that trigger?
Yeah.
What was
Which brings us to your third step, which, circling back, right?
that?
Because
Right.
we
So
talked
the
about yourself, regulate yourself,
regulate, then relate, connect,
relate with the kiddo, and
right?
then third step would be
Is
anything,
reason. Is
reason.
reason. And that's when you're ready to really like analyze a little bit, like what did happen?
Yeah. 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 And and it'll depend on their age, of course, right? Like the level of reasoning you could do.
Absolutely. I mean, for a little kid, it could be, I'll tell you what happened. You wouldn't let me have the candy, or like you told me to go to bed. Like that's what happened.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
guess what? There's a reason why there's a bedtime,
Right,
right?
right.
But then you can engage in that conversation and then be the parent, and it could
Mhm.
be like, all right, you were upset about that, but like you don't really make the rules in the house. I do. But
Yeah.
I understand that you got mad, and getting mad is an appropriate response,
Mhm.
right? It is. And the last thing we want to do is invalidate somebody's feelings,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
want to validate them. Feelings are real, feelings are important, right? They're informative.
Yeah, I love that. I think one of the things that you made a good point earlier was how this isn't necessarily really a distraction. When you're implementing these steps in this order, you're essentially not bulldozing over what's really happening. It doesn't become a gaslighting experience for
Oh,
them, but it
no,
systematically allows you to de-trigger their nervous system, and then you can process all the information with the part that went back online after the
that's right.
trigger. I love that so much.
Totally.
What are those steps again?
So it's regulate. This is another way it's easier to remember it. So the
Mhm,
first is regulate. So that's like about your body, right?
mhm.
Next is relate. That's about your heart connecting. And
Mm.
next is reason.
Oh, we're
Okay, so
moving up. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
love that.
Yeah,
Regulate, relate, and reason.
reason.
This is absolutely brilliant. And I think that, all the parents out there or teachers, so you might be watching this, you're a teacher, maybe you're
Yeah,
working with kids to any capacity,
yeah,
maybe you're a coach.
yeah.
And this is something that I can see them implementing right away,
Yeah. And
immediately.
so if anybody wanted to learn a little bit more of those 3 steps, so I actually didn't make up those 3 things. Those are from Dr. Bruce Perry,
Okay.
who a lot of his work is around trauma, like working with the most challenging, types of situations and
Yeah.
understanding, the triggers that we don't even know where they came from, kind
Right.
of embedded in trauma. So, um, these are it's a very well studied process,
Okay.
right? So it really does look at development. It looks at our neurocircuitry, the connection of our body and our brain, and how they work together. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and I love that. I think that a lot of people will have a lot to learn from you, especially since you have a set of tools and processes that you can pull from at your disposal to work with anxiety and kids. And I know you work a lot in school systems, right? Do you train
yes.
teachers and kids?
So my company, Sensational Kids,
Mhm.
primarily works with schools, helping them, number one, understand more about this link between the nervous system and behavior, and the nervous system and trauma, so that we can better prepare educators in
Mhm.
managing some of these things. And we do know, like, especially since COVID, classrooms they're bombarded with kids that are having these behavioral issues,
Yeah.
high anxiety, right? High trauma. And educators just they don't have the tools at their fingertips to be able to manage these things right when they come up, opposed to, like,
Yeah.
typically what schools will do is, you're not behaving appropriately, so you're going to get an X mark on this behavior chart.
Yeah.
And if there's 3 X marks, you are going down to the principal's office, right?
Yeah.
So essentially what we're doing is we're creating more pain on top of the pain that the child that is
Is
having a hard
currently
time is
in.
already having, right?
Yeah.
So shaming them with the X's, right?
Oh.
Then we're calling them out, like we're pulling them out. So we're disconnecting them
Mhm.
from us. So
And again, this is, like, not the fault of the teacher either. If you don't have those skills, you just don't
no,
have them, and
no,
the same with the coaches I work with. I often teach them how to de-escalate clients, right? Because this could happen on a group call. You could have a very triggered client.
oh,
What do you do in the moment?
yep,
And I always say this, it's not like the thing they teach is an issue for your teachers. They're brilliant by themselves. These are just additional skills and tools you can bring to the table to work
exactly.
with these situations.
Exactly. And, we are in this time right now in education where it's not just the kids that are having a hard time.
Right.
Educators, in terms of their own nervous system, their own anxiety, and
Yeah.
their own overwhelm and feeling just depleted.
Yeah.
So we really teach the tools to boost everybody from the inside out. Like I like to refer to it as like building inner resources.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Right? Because
Absolutely.
how we relate to everything outside of ourselves, everything is a mirror to what's happening within us. So
I
if
love that. Yeah.
yeah, so if we could build our own resilience, our own awareness of just what's happening inside of us, we'll be able to do a much better job of
Yeah. Yeah,
staying.
because I could imagine if they had the tools to deal with a child's trigger in the moment in the classroom, now they could be focused on the thing they want to be teaching. Maybe it's that history lesson you're excited to teach. You can get through it.
Yeah,
You could
yeah,
go and do the magic you really want to do with the kids.
yeah.
And then if a situation comes up, you know immediately how to deal with
Exactly.
it.
Oh, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of what we teach is those like preventative or proactive
Yeah.
tools of how do we just take a classroom of kids and the educator and start to build their window of tolerance, start to strengthen
Mhm.
the integrity and the resilience of their own nervous system. And we know that when we do that, like I said earlier, we turn on the prefrontal cortex. So many teachers start teaching when half their students, their prefrontal cortex isn't even online because
Mhm.
they just walked in, maybe they had an argument with somebody in the hallway, or they didn't get to have their favorite breakfast in the morning and they're mad at their
Right.
mom or dad, and or they're just worried they forgot their homework, right?
Mhm.
All of these things that just build up to an internal dysregulation.
Mhm.
So their prefrontal cortex isn't even available. And this is why, for a lot of
Yeah.
teachers, you have to keep teaching things over and over and over and over again because their kids are only learning it when their prefrontal cortex is online.
Online, if they're triggered and offline, they can't get in the
Well, they
information
can't process
anyway.
new information at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
for
it's so
us,
cool.
we want to give teachers the tools that, okay, in the morning, in the afternoon, before kids leave, here are some very simple things that you could do
Yeah.
to help balance the nervous system so that you could actually enjoy your day,
Yep.
right? You could
Yep.
enjoy teaching. Your kids will be more engaged.
It's so true, and that does make a difference. I just did a workshop where I was facilitating something in person, and I
Mhm.
made sure I embedded some of those things, well, things kinda that I do,
Yeah,
but I can see in the moment you're getting ahead of the trigger before it becomes a
yeah.
problem. Because anything you teach after that won't stick. It won't stick.
Exactly. I mean, you could even look at it like a baseball team,
Yeah.
right? You don't just go and like teach the team like how to hit the ball, how to hit the ball. You're going to do some things to make those arms stronger,
Right,
right? So
right.
that they can hit the ball with more accuracy or with greater strength, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So this is the same kind of thing. I mean, this is a muscle. This is a
Yeah.
muscle that we can hone and fine tune and integrate and have more control over.
Oh, yeah, I
Um,
100% agree.
yeah.
So, I know I have a lot of viewers who are parents themselves, and I
Yep.
have a lot that are teachers, a lot that are
Mhm.
coaches. Um, I have, your website, sensationalkids.com. Is this a place where even the parents can go and get additional resources and find out more about you?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And on the website, we have a lot of free resources that you can use in your home and you can use in your classroom. Some of the things are for you to use with kids, some of the things are for you to use for you. All of the blogs are very, I'd like to say, inspirational and actionable.
Oh, amazing.
So, yeah,
Mhm.
so they really give you tools, explain more about tools that you could use for different situations or scenarios or, in your own life. So the website has things for adults and for kids that
Amazing.
adults would use with kids. So it's not a website for kids.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I think I got that, but it was very good point of clarification.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if they wanted to, take it a step further, is your contact information also on your site? Can they
Everything's
ask
on
you
the site.
questions?
Yes,
Amazing. So
yes,
you heard it
absolutely.
here first, everyone. Sensational Kids with, Allison Morgan. I'm so glad you joined us. You've given me so much of your precious time, and you've given us
Been
so
so
much
so much fun. I feel like I could talk with you for hours, for
me too.
hours.
It's like
Yeah,
brain candy in a way.
yeah,
Once you,
yeah.
like,
So
hack
much
it,
fun.
it's so fun.
It's so much fun, and
Um,
I really, really appreciate, you having me here and letting me, like, share some of my knowledge with your audience because I truly do believe that these are, like, transformational things
yeah.
for
Yeah.
everybody. And I believe that everybody deserves to like feel safe, feel grounded, feel
Mhm.
calm, feel peaceful within their own body. It's like it's our birthright. It
Yeah.
is our
Yeah.
birthright to it's our natural state of being. And we've lost that a lot in our culture, and I just
Yeah.
want to bring it back.
Yeah. And, everyone could use a little boost after COVID
Yeah.
because I think everyone's a little bruised after that as
Yeah.
well. So having
Yeah.
that additional support and resources. So thank you for being so generous with your time and your resources. Everyone, go to sensationalkids.com if you want to know more about how Allison and her magic and her skills and her tools and her protocols could be of service to you in helping your triggered kids or the work you do. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you
Of
so much.
course. So, y'all, that was Allison. Go ahead and go to sensationalkids.com if you have any additional questions. I did take a sneak peek at the website, and there is a contact tab. So if you want to go ahead and contact her and her team and find out more information about how you can bring those amazing tools and much more in her protocols into your world, go ahead and click that tab, the contact us tab, and you'll be able to reach out and let her know more about what's going on. And of course, her site is full of amazing resources that I made sure I vetted for you all. So go to sensationalkids.com and learn more about Allison Morgan's stuff and all the things that you could be using with your folks in the highest triggered situations, including your kids. Y'all, I put this podcast together on my YouTube channel on Panic Attack Guy called Helping Your Anxious Clients because I'm on a mission to making sure that coaches could do their magic and not having to deal with the most triggered clients themselves. So if you like any of the resources that we've been talking about here and you want to know more information or ask me questions personally, I just ask you that you can subscribe to my newsletter. It is the Anxiety Freedom Gazette. So go to anxietyfreedomgazette.com. And I give you all of the playbacks, the links, the resources from this podcast. And like that, you could get first dibs on any new resources that I get for you out there, coaches. And of course, things that apply for your kids, I'll make sure that they are coming from reputable sources that I have vetted myself. Also, y'all didn't know, but Allison and I go way back, so I really, really trust her. So that said, go ahead and go to anxietyfreedomgazette.com and you will be on my list. And you could even message me on the kickback email if you have any additional questions. Go to anxietyfreedomgazette.com. As always, thank you for joining us for episode 3 on how helping your anxious clients, brought to you by my YouTube channel, Panic Attack Guy. I will see you all next week, Friday noon. See ya.